What is the perfect client? Which I think is a very, very interesting topic because I think my answer will surprise most.
Mhm.
But
I'm
I
actually
also,
worried because I think that we may differ a little bit on this one.
I'm not worried.
Not
Okay.
worried like in actual fear, but like as I was thinking about this question this week, I'm like thinking, I wonder how that would I wonder how that would match up with other creators or business owners type of deals. Cause I feel like I have after 10 years, have a very specific perfect client.
Yeah. So let's give that caveat real quick. How many years in the game?
2013, so 11 years.
11 years in the game,
Yeah.
full time, the entire time
Eh,
ish.
ish. Yeah.
Ish. Okay. So I've been at this for 12 years
Uh-huh.
total. I quit my job 3 years into it. So I'm like nine, almost 10 years full time doing this. And have run the gambit.
Yeah.
I mean, from nightclubs to music videos to real estate to documentaries to comedy sketches for
Yeah.
Instagrammers to now Nikon, right?
Are you even a filmmaker if you haven't shot a music video?
I mean, I don't know. If you haven't done a music video or a nightclub at least once, you gotta do it just for the stories.
Yeah.
I mean, can you talk about video business if you haven't been snubbed by one rapper?
Yes. Yes.
All right. So, Jarrell, what to you equals, and chat, I want to know in the chat because I think a lot of people have different opinions here. So, chat, I really want to know from you as I asked Jarrell this question too. What to you makes up the perfect client? Or what are you looking for when it comes to the perfect client?
Yeah, it's going to be really specific to me. But what I love is when a client sees my work and decides I am picking Jarrell because he has already wowed me in terms of what I've seen from him. And so when they decide to work with me, I'm already in a place where they like everything that I do for them. They're just all right. That's awesome. That exceeds my expectations. So when I send them an edit, they're like, "Oh, this is great." Very little, like maybe add this or maybe add that, but very little feedback. I love that about clients. I got to be honest with you. When I have clients that are like, "Can you change this? Can you change this? Can you edit this? Can you change the music?" Like those are the clients that I get super irritated with, which I know isn't necessarily realistic. That especially the larger the clients that you work with, the larger the price points. But I've just worked for some clients that have paid $6, $7, $8,000 for a video, and they loved me before I ever did anything for them, and they were like, first round, it's perfect. I love it. That is something that I selfishly really like. What's a thing that you like about a perfect client?
Yeah, I think for me, it really starts with similar to what you said. They already are a fan of my work.
Mhm.
I'm never gonna be that guy who is getting hired because I just shoot video.
Mm.
You're hiring Brandon Washington and B Wash Media, my production company, because of what we've already done and what we put out there to show that we can do that. That to me is like the number one first step because that I've learned is like I remember back when I used to do weddings. This is how I learned a lot of the things I've learned about what I like in clients is dealing with clients that I don't like. And like one of the big things in weddings is like, ooh, I really like this guy's wedding. Can you make me a wedding film like this?
Mm.
And that started the conversation off in such a demeaning point where it's like,
Mhm.
hey, I know you do this already, but don't do what you do. Do what this guy does because I like that better. And for me, I was always like, then go hire that guy.
Oh
Why
yeah.
are you talking to me? You know what I mean?
100%.
But I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like, yo, I need this bread, so sure, I'll throw that stupid LUT on there. Like, yeah, we can, overexpose, blow out some highlights and make everything look sepia tone. Like, sure,
Yeah.
let's go for it.
Yeah, seriously.
But
Not going on my portfolio, but sure.
exactly. Yeah, like I'm not gonna share this video, but you can. Got out of weddings. So I can tell you first thing I learned was that wedding clients are not my favorite clients.
Mhm.
Not doing weddings. Shout out to Porter. Keep holding down the game for all of us who don't want to do it.
Seriously.
But what I did learn for me was that like working within commercial spaces is kind of like the perfect setting for my perfect client.
Mm,
I like clients, you ready for this?
mhm,
Who are not spending their money.
mm,
They are spending a budget that is like given to them by a CEO or a CFO.
mhm,
Because I have learned that for me, I don't like emotional transactions.
mhm,
I like logical transactions. And so when somebody's spending their money, it's emotional. Heck, when I spend my money, it's emotional.
mhm.
Or if my wife spends my money, it's emotional. But when it comes to working with clients, I prefer someone who's spending a budget and not their own money.
That's good.
That makes it much easier because now everything is just a logical decision. And if they want to work with me or they don't want to work with me, it's not an emotional decision. It's just logic.
Mhm,
Like, hey, logically, we want to go with you because of XYZ reasons. Now, I have learned that if there is a scale of 1 to 5 on budgets, one being the lowest end, five being the highest you've ever made, right?
mhm,
I have found that my sweet spot is actually at 4,
mm.
not at 5. And the reason is I find that like one is just I don't want to be there because they're just not paying me enough and I'm gonna
Yeah.
feel like I'm wasting my time. Two is a little bit better, but at two, they require so much more and they feel like they're spending a lot of money, but they're really not.
Mhm,
And so that just becomes that headache. Three is a safe second place for me.
mhm,
But 4 is the sweet spot. It's where I'm making more than I normally would, so it's above average for
mhm,
me, but that client knows exactly what they want for that budget. It's very built into the scope of the project. It's logical. We're at a happy 4. Where I find 5 is great. Don't get me wrong. Making more money than I've ever made on a project, always a huge win. It's nice to say, "Oh, I made X amount. That's the most I've ever made on a project."
mhm,
But what I typically find is that there's a certain level of stress when you start to stretch yourself a little bit further
mhm,
when it comes to the production, it comes to how you allocate the budget, when it comes to like a lot of different things. It just becomes more and more difficult when you start getting to those higher tiers.
mhm.
And then also when someone's at the max, they also feel like they're at the max. And sometimes I start to feel this like pressure of okay, there needs to be a very high perceived value for what they're getting because they're at their max, I'm at my max, and we need to match up. And I just find myself more comfortable and more able to coast at a 4
Mhm.
because then it's like, oh yeah, I've done this before. I feel really confident. They don't feel like they're overpaying. I don't feel like I'm doing too much. And I can take multiple 4s like in a month. But when if you throw a 5 at me, that just becomes everything. So I'm like, oh, I
Oh,
gotta
yeah.
dedicate everything to this. And what I find in the long run is sometimes when you do those max big budgets, you get one of those, you spend 3 months doing it, but while you're spending the 3 to 4 months working on that one project, you're not actually working on your business. So
Mhm.
you slow down client acquisition, you let a couple emails slip because you're like, oh, we don't have time to take this project on. And then you end up in a place where you're like, oh man, if I would have just taken a couple 3s and 4s, I could have just kept that going consistently.
Oh, yeah.
And that would have been great for me. And I probably would have actually made more money than just focusing on 1 5 every 3 to 5 months. Now, granted, that's going to depend on how much you're currently charging, and I don't want to tell anybody how to charge within their business.
Mhm.
But I will say that, like for me, that is sort of the sweet spot.